Here's the pile of loot we've already known about so far. This is what we know Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell and his family have taken so far, all from one guy. A $15,000 catered chicken dinner, a $6,500 Rolex watch, a $10,000 Oscar de la Renta suede jacket, a Louis Vuitton handbag, 2 pairs of designer shoes, a designer dress, a lakefront home vacation, thousands of dollars in trips on a private jet, a loan of the CEO's $190,000 white Ferrari, woo! A check for $50,000 made out to a corporate entity owned by the governor and his sister, another check for $20,000 to the same deal, a check for another $50,000 made out to the governor's wife, and a check for $10,000 made out to one of the governor's daughters. All from one guy. And now, apparently because that is not enough stuff, and because this story never ends, there's now more to add to the pile. There's also a trip paid for the governor's daughter and a friend to fly to Florida for a vacation last Labor Day weekend. Also, that same last Labor Day weekend, private airfare and a 5-night stay for the governor and his wife at this lovely spot. It is a swanky hotel in Chatham on Cape Cod. And no, wait, there's more. Also now a reported $7,000 worth of golf equipment and golf games at what the Washington Post describes as elite Richmond area country clubs. Those were enjoyed by the governor and his twin sons and even some of the governor's staff. And the reason we know about at least the golf and the Cape Cod trip is because the Virginia businessman who gave all of these things to Governor Bob McDonnell and his family, he expensed the golf thing and the Cape Cod thing with his company. He got reimbursed by his company for those gifts that he bought for the governor and his family. And the company paid reimbursement for those things because they were business expenses. They were expenses for which the benefit was expected to redound to that company. And that is kind of the whole point here. They knew what they were paying for. I didn't know it goes like this in federal corruption investigations, but apparently if you are the subject of a federal bribery investigation, a corruption investigation as a public official, you and your lawyers get to go meet with the prosecutors to try to talk them out of charging you. I didn't know that's the way it goes, but Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell's lawyers and his wife's lawyers, separate groups, they have already met with federal prosecutors to try to talk the governor's way out of jail, to try to convince prosecutors not to charge them under the federal law that says you can't trade public actions as a public official for personal gifts, cash or otherwise. Sources tell the Washington Post that in that meeting with the prosecutors, Governor McDonnell's big defense was ignorance. So yeah, as governor, he may have taken actions to help that company. And yeah, he and his family may have taken a lot of personal gifts from that company. But, big but, he didn't know about the gifts when he was doing the helping. That was the case that the governor made. That was the way the governor threw his wife under the bus, incidentally, saying, yeah, maybe she took some of those gifts and she knew about them, but the governor did not. That has been the defense, but that defense is now going all pear-shaped. Thanks to this latest reporting from the Washington Post about all the new gifts that we did not know about before, and about the governor personally being there to witness his wife receiving some of the gifts. That $15,000 fashion shopping spree to New York that the governor has steadfastly avoided taking any responsibility for, that was a gift accepted by his family from this company. It turns out that the governor was there in the room in front of a crowd of other people when that gift was arranged and publicly offered to his wife, according to the Washington Post. So if he was there in that room for that, claiming ignorance and blaming the wife are both getting to be a little bit harder. And this whole thing is getting harder for Governor Bob McDonnell, who has still not resigned, but who now apparently gets the pleasure of going back for a second round of begging and pleading with federal prosecutors to please not indict him before he leaves office. Washington Post reporting that prosecutors have now asked the governor's and First Lady's attorneys to return for a second round of discussions no later than the week of September 15th. Prosecutors could decide whether to file charges after those meetings. It's interesting, though. If they meet as late as September 15th, that'll only be like 6 weeks away from the November elections, at which Virginia voters are supposed to pick the successor to Bob McDonnell. Everybody keeps saying the prosecutors don't want to make any moves too close to that election because they don't want to affect the election one way or the other. But these two dramas of Bob McDonnell's public, slow-motion, never-ending implosion and the race to succeed him in Virginia, at least just on the calendar, these two things are starting to converge. Watch this space.